Hi, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Ottawa, where a court hearing is continuing, and Manitoba NDP MP Nikki Ashton is continuing to press the government over clean drinking water in Shamattawa First Nation. The First Nation in northern Manitoba has taken the federal government to court over a lack of safe drinking water. Along with Shamattawa, over 50 First Nations have signed on to a class action lawsuit, which is currently being heard in federal court. The legal action is seeking $1.1 billion in damages.
Speaker, we're now over 1,300 days since the Liberals promised to end boiled water advisories, but instead of doing that, the Liberals are fighting First Nations in court as we speak. Doing their best Stephen Harper impression, they are carrying on years of colonialism and denying First Nations the right to clean drinking water. Shamattawa, the lead plaintiff, is taking on Canada, one of the richest countries in the world, whose Prime Minister travels the world pretending to be a leader in human rights, all the while denying Shamattawa clean water. When will this government stop fighting Shamattawa to Taskwiak and 58 First Nations and deliver clean drinking water?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, since 2015, we've lifted 145 long-term boil water advisories together with First Nations, and we're going to continue till we get the job done. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, that member opposite has an opportunity to help make sure we never return to the situation that we found ourselves in 2015 with Bill C-61 in committee nearing study. I hope that we'll see a safe passage of that legislation through this House so that no First Nations person ever lives without clean water again.
Still in Ottawa, NDP MP Lori Idlut asked about contamination in Fort Chipewyan in question period on Tuesday. The community has dealt with higher rates of cancer for years, and the NDP says the federal government knew of this as far back as 2017 when a report identified the contamination.
The Liberals are actively refusing reconciliation and evading their obligations required in the honour of the Crown. This government knew for 7 years that the big dock in Fort Chipewyan is contaminated with cancer-causing substances, and for 7 years they covered it up. Rightfully, families are now worried about their children's health and whether they will lose them to cancer. When will this government uphold the honour of the Crown and work with First Nations to ensure their health and safety?
Hear, hear. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for raising this important point. Safety is my top priority as Minister of Transport. I hear and understand the concerns from the First Nation communities, and it is crucial that remote northern and Indigenous communities have access to safe and reliable connectivity that they need. I will be continuing to work with the Minister of Indigenous Services on this very important matter. Thank you.
To Manitoba now, and building on their commitment to end homelessness in 2 years, the government is putting $10 million towards new housing grants. The program is called the Collaborative Housing Alliance Real Estate Investment Trust, and it's being developed by the Business Council of Manitoba. The grants will cover the startup costs for new buildings or converting existing buildings into affordable housing projects. The projects will offer units at below market rates. A combination of public, private, and nonprofit resources will support the Housing Alliance Trust Fund. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Acting Grand Chief Betsy Kennedy welcomed the new funding, noting that First Nations people are disproportionately impacted by the housing crisis. At a business and housing summit yesterday morning, Premier Wab Kinew discussed his government's plan to work with business leaders to expand Manitoba's affordable housing supply.
Today we're announcing that we are providing a seed investment of $10 million to launch a new concept called a social REIT. This is a $10 million investment that we are going to be working on with the business leaders of this province to go out and use that to leverage additional capital to then go out into the community and add more housing. so that we can create new rungs on the ladder that starts with us getting people off of the street and into social housing, but now we'll create those next steps into affordable and market-based housing. And with the other investments we've announced into the budget, hopefully someday, a path to home ownership.
To the housing crisis in Saskatchewan now, where dozens of people gathered at Saskatoon City Hall Tuesday to voice their concerns about the growing issue of homelessness in the city. The crowd heard potential solutions, some coming from those who are unhoused themselves. And as CTV's Carla Scheinkaruk reports, a plan to set up a tent city was one of the ideas put forward.
Over there, I'm treated as a person, and over here, I am not.
This man is unhoused and took to the open mic to share his story, telling the crowd he's considering moving to Edmonton because they have better supports.
Any direction you walk around here, you're going to find remnants of somebody being homeless, and you know who he's going to be outside tonight. He
shared that he lost his job in the oil field and ended up addicted to alcohol, living on the streets. He's now sober and looking to get back on his feet.
Do I stay here, or do I go to Edmonton, where there's actually, they have a place called the Bissell Center, where they have washers and dryers for the homeless.
This rally was put on by the Prairie Community Coalition. Manuela Vallea Castro says action needs to be taken now to support the homeless in our city.
We want to see shelters that are centering community needs, harm reduction, that are Indigenous led.
She told the crowd that her group is currently considering a tent city this winter.
It's an emergency action to keep people alive. Given the duress of the weather that we have in Saskatchewan winter, we are going to protect our relatives and our community members.
She says they haven't had discussions with the city yet, but are planning to. The city told CTV News this in an email statement. The city and various social agencies have been patient, mindful of process, continued to work on solutions for many years, and have offered solutions to the issues highlighted by this group. But out of concern for personal safety, health, and welfare, the city cannot in good conscience allow people to live in freezing temperatures in a public park. The city added tent cities create greater health and safety risks, including fires, based on cities that have had them. Other solutions from the rally included having Indigenous individuals hired to offer supports, with a high number of Indigenous people represented in the unhoused populations.
Why can't they bring $1 million worth of mental health workers, people that can walk around on the street?
Some of the speakers also called on churches to open their doors to help the homeless, as well as getting businesses on board to help with funds or to offer vacant buildings. Carla Schinkruk, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Meanwhile, in news that may not come as a big surprise, the rich get richer while the rest of Canadians are feeling the squeeze. A new report shows high inflation has eroded the purchasing power of many people in the country, particularly those in lower income households. But the opposite is true for higher income households. The report was conducted by the Parliamentary Budget Office, or PBO. It highlights the strain on lower income households to buy things like food, shelter, and transportation. But wealthier Canadian households are seeing their purchasing power go up. The report points to increased investment income as the cause for the divide. A circle of Indigenous leaders recently gathered to discuss the impacts of resource extraction projects and the link to increased violence against Indigenous women and girls. Leaders from across Canada have formed an Indigenous Advisory and Monitoring Committee for the Trans Mountain expansion and existing pipeline. The committee will enable collaborative work and progress on advancing the calls for justice that were developed after the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls was completed.
When industries move into our territories, they do so often without the free, prior, and informed consent of our people. They extract the wealth of our lands, leaving behind poisoned waters, polluted air, and devastated ecosystems. They impact our culture, families, lives, and rights. They bring with them an increased risk of violence and exploitation.
It's an often forgotten piece of legislation, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. Its action plan promised a lot of things, like protecting inherent Indigenous rights, the right to self-determination, and addressing injustices like systemic racism. A Senate committee is currently studying how undrip is being implemented. Former Minister of Justice Jody Wilson-Raybould was a key witness this week. She called undrip a good start, but said deeper reforms are needed to ensure its success. Wilson-Raybould gave an example.
Effective and efficient mechanisms for a nation getting their land back or the resolution of disputes outside of the courts, as well as new Indigenous institutions that are independent from the federal government, that importantly support the work of nation and government rebuilding.
Time now for a look at one of our web poll questions this week. We're asking, how much confidence do you have in Canada's criminal justice system? High confidence, moderate confidence, low confidence, or no confidence? You can weigh in on this and our other weekly poll questions by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. Time for a quick break. Still to come, we'll check in with our friends from National Indigenous Television. Stick around. Welcome back. A descendant of Australia's second Prime Minister has given evidence at Victoria's Indigenous Truth-Telling Commission to discuss his ancestors' role in legislation that would eventually lead to the stolen generations. A special descendants hearing of the Yoorrook Justice Commission took place in Melbourne this week, hearing from people with connections to colonial figures.
A day of raw truth-telling as non-Indigenous witnesses appear at the Yoorrook Justice Commission to acknowledge Victoria's history.
They stand as examples of the way non-Indigenous people can face the truth of our past and, by sharing, build bridges between the oppressed and those of us who have inherited the past of the oppressors.
Peter Sharp is the great-grandson of Australia's second Prime Minister, Alfred Deakin. The Commission heard that while serving as the colony of Victoria's Chief Secretary in the 1880s, he sponsored the Aboriginal Protection Amendment Act. It ultimately allowed the forced removal of mixed-race children.
That is the start of the stolen generation. That is the start. And I just want to make the point that the devastation, that act was so devastating and dehumanising for our people.
Because Victoria was sort of seen as politically progressive at the time, the Act, it was pretty easy for all the other states to say, oh, if Victoria can do that, we'll do it too. And they took it up.
He said it's important for people to know history.
This was a shock. I had no idea that this could have been possible. All the books I'd read had said that Deakin was a supporter of Aboriginal rights.
A woman who owns a property where a well-known massacre took place also gave evidence. The 1843 Warrigal Creek massacre on Gunai-Kurnai country happened on land now owned by Elizabeth Balderston. Since taking over the property, she has ensured the area is fenced off and has built positive relationships with traditional owners.
Our role is to just care for it gently and quietly and be led by First Nation people on the traditional owners, on how to look after it in any other way.
She spoke about her desire to jointly manage the site and urged more farmers and property owners to work in good faith with traditional owners.
Not telling the truth is never going to get any of us anywhere, and it's going to sort of halt things and stall things.
Hopes their evidence will encourage non-Indigenous Australians to come to terms with the truth of our past. Cameron Gooley, NITV News.
25 First Nations students from boarding schools around Australia popped into Canberra's Parliament House this week as part of their graduation from the prestigious Yalari Scholarship Program. Since 2005, Yalari has provided secondary education scholarships for Indigenous students from regional and remote areas at some of the nation's top boarding schools. And while our colleagues at NITV News were there, it was the impressive students themselves who jumped in front of the camera to tell their own stories.
Hi, I'm Winnie Nona. I'm a 2024 graduate of the Yalari program. We're here in Canberra right now for the graduation ceremony, and today we had the pleasure of catching up with the founder of the Yalari program, Waverley Stanley.
Hello, my name is Stephen Blanasi. I'm a proud Miley man from Arnhem Land. I'm here with Waverley Stanley. Tell me more about Yalari.
So Yalari is a not-for-profit company that we started in 2005. And all it is we educate Indigenous children from regional, rural and remote communities around Australia to go to boarding schools.
What's your favourite experience through all your years in Yalari?
I think the growth of children from 11, 12 years of age to then see them as our alumni now, that's been by far the most blessed thing for me as a man, being an Aboriginal man. And I've got all these children all around Australia. We've got nearly 580 odd alumni now. I'm so very, very grateful to living a purpose of what we're doing.
And I also got to catch up with some of the other graduates from this year. What has been some challenges that you faced while at boarding and while on Yalari?
Being homesick and away from family.
What are your plans for after you graduate?
Well, I've applied to a few unis in Perth to study either psychology or social work.
And what has been some of the highlights of being on Yalari and this journey?
Every time we meet up with the Yalari camps and that stuff, and it's just great to just see everyone, all of our friends, our family, our mobs.
And I'm Winnie Nona for NITV News.
Future journalist there. Well, we're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. You can also read and watch our stories by going to our website, aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Some of the most prestigious literary and art awards have been announced. The nominees have been announced, and there's plenty of Indigenous representation this time around. That and more still to come. Welcome back. Here's a look at your current conditions. Sunny and 9 in Fredericton, 13 in Halifax. Cloudy and 9 in Kuujjuaq, cloud and 6 in Nain. 11 in Montreal, cloudy and 3 in Val-d'Or. Sunny and 8 at this hour in Sault Ste. Marie, showers and 5 in North Bay. Sunny and 6 in Thunder Bay, 6 and cloudy in Sioux Lookout. 5 in God's Lake, 8 in Norway House. 13 in Winnipeg, sunny and 9 in Dauphin. 11 in Regina, cloudy and 6 in Saskatoon. 7 in Meadow Lake and Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, sun's out and 11 in High Level, 10 and sunny in Fort Chip. 12 in Edmonton, 25 in Lethbridge. Showers and 16 in Vancouver, 20 in Kamloops. 10 with rain in Prince George, showers and 9 in Smithers. 0 in Old Crow, rain and 5 in Whitehorse. 7 in Yellowknife, 4 in Norman Wells. Snow and 0 in Sax Harbor, flurries and 2 in Paulatuck. 6 in Chesterfield, 7 in Arbiat. 0 with snow in Resolute, 6 in Arctic Bay. 8 Indigenous authors out of 35 total authors have been shortlisted as finalists for the 2024 Governor General's Literary Award. The award is one of the most prestigious literary honors in Canada. In the fiction category, Niska writer Jordan Abel's novel Empty Spaces, along with Cree artist Kent Monkman's First Nations history memoir, made the top 5. Saulteaux Cree Métis author Brandy Bird earned a spot in the poetry category, and Métis playwright Kaylee Crow in the drama category. Our Truth in Politics panels Negon Sinclair's Winnipeg and Helen Knott's Becoming a Matriarch were shortlisted in the nonfiction category. Métis Nation Ontario member Sherry Dimmeline and Cree author Christy Jackson were nominated in the Young People's Literature text category. The winners of the award will be announced on November 13th. Now to another prestigious honor. In a little over a month, the winner of the annual Sobey Art Award will be announced. Our reporter Sav Jonesa gives us a look at the Indigenous finalists vying for the $100,000 prize.
This year, 4 of the 6 visual artists shortlisted for the prestigious Sobey Art Award are Indigenous. One artist from each of Canada's 6 regions is chosen for the shortlist to win the $100,000 prize. Representing the Pacific region is Judy Chartrand, a Cree ceramic and installation-based artist. The prairies are represented by Métis photographer and filmmaker Rain Vermette. Quebec region's Nico Williams is an Anishinaabe who makes sculptures using beadwork. And it's the first year for the circumpolar region category encompassing northern Canada. It's represented by Takralik Partridge, an Inuk spoken word poet and visual artist originally from Kuujjuaq, Nunavik in northern Quebec. She says she's shocked and honored to be the first finalist for the circumpolar region.
I'm just so honored. I see my work as part of the contemporary Inuit art movement. Inuit art is just kicking, and I'm just blown away that I get to be part of it with all these other amazing artists.
The winner will be announced November 9th. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The other 2 non-Indigenous visual artists shortlisted for the award are Ontario Region's June Clark, who works in photography and sculpture, and the Atlantic Region's Matthew Ledger, who uses performance and sound to deliver his art. Best of luck to all the finalists and congrats to all the nominees for those prestigious awards. Now to another award, and pumpkin season is officially underway. And one gargantuan gourd has received a very prestigious prize in Ontario. The winner of this year's Elk Grove Giant Pumpkin Festival was a massive pumpkin weighing in at nearly 2,000 pounds. The festival's top spot comes with a $7,000 cash prize. The annual event is also celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. Well, online retailer Amazon kicked off its Prime Day sale Tuesday, and people will be hunting for good deals. But some experts are warning shoppers to watch out for scammers. More than 1,000 newly registered Amazon-related web domains were reported in the month leading up to this week. The domains posed as the tech giant, a majority of them being deemed malicious or suspicious. Experts say the intent is to trick consumers. Amazon customers are asked to take precautions while shopping. Scammer for everything these days. Well, that's all the time we have for your first look at the day's news. For the very latest, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I will see you back here at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for your APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.